Hello everyone. I cannot see this very well.
Huh?
But where's all of our light?
What do you mean?
Oh, it's just dark.
Oh. Well, one of them is in the garage because I was gessoing boards and I took a light out there. But yeah, that helps.
That helps. Thank you. My God.
That's the painting, obviously.
And you didn't varnish it yet.
No, that's just got. I just used a lot of painting medium, so it's kind of glossy.
It's an amazing. It reminds me of Zaslav.
Well,
That is very nice.
That is understandable since he's
Big influence.
a big inspiration to me.
See, look. You look at it through my thing.
Yeah. When there are two lights on it, so it sets up a weird frequency. I don't know.
That is pretty crazy.
I didn't even know that was in there. I just opened the thing to look at it. It was.
you
I think it
forget
was
you
something. I
started
think
it?
it was something we started during a different weekend thing that a different broadcast.
I
that
don't
we-
know. I don't remember that one at all. I think.
Maybe not. I've been having a lot of fun sketching with these
Your stolen pins.
Signo Uniball pens. I guess these are gel pens. This is a .38, but stolen. Yeah,
From my.
I've been having a lot of fun with them.
Oh, wait. Oh. D. Fisher House says they love your work.
Oh, thank you. So, I mean, it's just.
Oh, wait, I didn't get the other bag. Go back.
Well, I don't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What are you trying? What do you want to see?
Oh, I was just looking at it.
These
Very
are
cool.
obviously graphite. I have no idea what that is, but it kind of looks cute and a little horrifying at the
That
same
guy
time.
too.
Yeah, they're the same guy. I'm just trying to figure out the face. So when people were talking about whether or not I figure things out, there are times when I do.
Figure things out.
Yeah. I wrote down some names of people that I liked a lot recently that I could. People were asking about inspirations. There's Bosch, Beksinski. There's a painter, Nicola Samori, who is insanely does some beautiful work that's also disturbing.
Present day, right?
Yeah, present day. Arthur Rackham, Near Gustave Doré. If you want to if you want to study light, an expertise in light, look at anything that Mike Mignola does. His is only about light and where the light hits the character and the figure. Mobius, obviously, and I'll come up with some more. These are just the ones that, as I was browsing one of my Pinterest feeds, that I noted, I took down of some of the guys that people might be familiar with, so,
Very cool.
or not familiar with.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's enough of that. Now you look at these. These are my fish bones that came in today.
Are those fish bones?
Yeah, these are all fish bones. This is actually a skull. I think it might be a cat. I think it's a catfish skull. It might be a carp.
That's one big carp.
Yeah, but that's the skull plate.
Put it under the light there.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Both sides are beautiful, actually.
Oops, sorry.
So,
I'm looking the other way. Boy, those are nicely clean too, aren't they?
yeah, they are very cool.
Wow.
This was my little head I sculpted last week. I don't know if you can see them or not. Look under here.
Nope, see? It's like
This is just
it
done
needs to be under there.
in
you go.
Sculpey. You know, as a little bit of reference. And, you know, it's not perfect, but like I said, when you're doing stuff for yourself, whether or not there's tool marks in your reference or not doesn't make much of a difference. If you're doing it for production, I mean, obviously they want it to look like a real thing.
Right.
But when you're doing stuff for yourself, if you get it 80 or 90% there for what you need, that's all you really need.
It is. Someone asked if it was a kneaded eraser. It is
Oh,
not.
this is Sculpey. Yeah, this is just the what is it called?
Super Sculpey?
Yeah, Super Sculpey. This was Super Sculpey Firm, I believe. I've done this with kneaded erasers too.
Oh, those.
But that's always
Jaws.
kind of a tragedy if you do something you like, because it's never going to stay that way forever.
Oh, they want to need to show the list of artists again. Yes.
There you go. That's just a few.
Oh yeah, there's more.
Hieronymus Bosch, Beksinski, as everyone already knows. Nicholas Samori. I don't know how to pronounce his name, if that's proper or not.
Is he present day?
He is present day, and you can find YouTubes of walkthroughs with his studio, but I think they're all in Italian on YouTube.
Oh.
But he does some beautiful, disturbing, kind of a combination of contemporary textural stuff with classical painting.
Is he the guy you were showing me?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
Some of it, I mean, and it's just like they're beautiful, and obviously Odd Neerdrum, and there's a whole school of guys who work and studied under Odd Neerdrum that all have their kind of the perspective on that kind of painting too. But if you look up Odd Neerdrum, there's some beautiful stuff from him and Gustave Doré. And I was saying before that if you noted, if you look at Mike Mignola's work, that's a beautiful way to study how light can reveal a character's form, because that is what his is about, how to tell a story with how the light hits the form.
I know, they're beautiful.
You know,
Mobius.
and obviously Mobius, who is just just is beautiful.
Absolutely. So, does everyone else have all the firecrackers going off? Because we have firecrackers already. Well, if you're in the States, because it's June 30th, so the 4th of July is around the corner, and they're already shooting
fireworks. Yeah.
Yep.
It was a good thunderstorm earlier though.
Yes.
So just before we came online to do the thing, we watched Coco, which is a really fun and beautiful movie.
I know. We hadn't seen Coco before. Isn't that terrible? Yeah.
Huh?
Got dogs hiding under the couch. Yeah, our dog just joined us in here because he heard the fireworks. He's like, yeah.
I got to think. I've talked about this. My kids were like, "Why is he so upset?" And I was like, "Well, the way that a dog hears, I mean, it's probably like the entire world is growling at him. Is what it sounds like to him."
Yes, Coco. Yeah, you have to see Coco. I'm sure everybody else has seen it.
Right.
Which movie? The movie is called Coco.
Yeah, it's called Coco. C-O-C-O.
Mm-hmm. The animated film by Pixar. Do you have a preference for drafting tables, and if so, why?
I have worked on every kind of table pretty much. I used to work flat, and of course, at some point you realize when you're working flat that things look different when you tilt them up. When you put them up vertically, they look a little different. Because if you work flat and you're coming at it from an angle, you're skewing things in a perspective that you don't even realize.
So if you get a large enough piece on a flat surface,
it'll look weird when you stand it up.
Which is why you go to easels, correct?
Yeah. A lot of times nowadays, though, I'll design like almost vertically so that I know where everything is properly placed, and then I'll lay it down and work on it flat, because I'll know then that the perspectives and the proportions all the way I want it to be.
Gotcha.
So,
people are still joining.
I have this is a nice drawing table.
But anything really.
But anything really. Don't let the lack of a drawing table get in your way. I mean, half the time when I'm just drawing for myself, I'll put it on a piece of board and go sit on the couch.
That's true.
So, it's
Our Bog says this piece looks a little different from your latest works.
What now? The
piece you're working on looks different.
This one?
Yes.
It is. It's like, I don't know, it's still moving around. Right now I pulled it out because I wanted to have, I wasn't actually physically working on anything actively for the video, so I opened this up and this is what I happen to open to. I don't even know what else is in this book.
Because he doesn't have just one sketchbook.
I do like a few
He likes jumping around.
In every one. So.
I hate Mona Lisa says you should charge for this info. It's pure gold. Well, we have a Patreon if you want to jump over there. That's like your.
That's like I was playing around with doing another version of the Slither character. So.
It's pretty cool. Our Patreon is under patreon.com/Alan Williams.
And we are going to do a video.
Yes.
We're talking to somebody about actual, getting decent production value into a video.
Yeah, we're meeting either Tuesday or Thursday this week.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. been I've been watching people's video diaries online.
at night?
Yeah, of being in their studios, like there's like the one I was talking about the Nicola Samori.
What my
And
studio looks like.
if you're not aware of it, Beksinski has like a lot of actual footage of him recording himself, not actively painting, but staging paintings through their stages online. If you do a YouTube search of Beksinski, it'll show up. And those are pretty fun because if you ever get to that point where you're frustrated with a painting, you watch somebody else who obviously was very well known for what he did, and you see him go through the same process. Like there are points almost at every painting where he says, "I think I'm just going to start something new."
Yeah.
And then he keeps going with it, and it usually turns
And
out
it works
okay.
out.
But
Obelisk Arts asks, do you use one grade of hardness of graphite or multiple?
if I'm doing something that's probably going to end up being like I'm drawing like for a sketch that's going to be a painting, I'll probably stick with like a 6B. But if I'm doing like a finished drawing, I'll find myself going towards different hardnesses, all the way up to about the hardest I've ever usually go is HB. So I stick to the soft leads. But yeah, I do on occasion use other hardnesses. I mean, you can take a 4B and get a wild range from like almost HB if you're very careful with your hand to almost a 6B.
Right.
So picking a mid-range hardness of a lead will get you pretty far. Actually, this sort of reminds me of this little sketch I was doing earlier, where the forms are covered with wrinkles.
Oh, yeah.
And
Ooh,
so.
that's creepy. What do you think of the woodless graphite pencils?
Oh, I
they ask?
have some of those, and I like them because they're if you angle the lead, if you sharpen them in a normal pencil sharpener, you'll still have like a drawing surface that's like this big, from the point all the way to this big, and you can make chisel points with them at almost any size. Those are great.
Mm-hmm.
I have one somewhere. I don't know. But I mean, I also use these the 5.6 millimeters, which are pretty fat too.
Remember, like,
And this is also a 6B.
I said thank you for the info.
Oh, you're welcome.
We should prompt people, but it's been a busy week.
It's been kind of fun when I've been working on the paintings, because you get used to working on things at an arm's distance away, and you see a certain kind of detail when you're this far away from something, and when you're working on a painting, you realize you've got to step back again. And so I've done this when I start painting. It takes me a couple of like an hour to figure out, I've got to get back and look at it from
Yes,
a distance, and then start looking at the painting from like.
Yes, he'll back up. He'll be painting at it this close.
Right.
Here's the one that this is finished.
It's getting there. It's close. It's like probably 80-90% done. And I let myself be a little more loose with this one, than I
Then
have
he'll
been.
come way back here. I often find him way back here looking at it.
And if it's a bigger one, like the 24 by 36,
Yeah,
I'll
but-
probably open the door and go back into
Yeah,
the living room.
he could step back into the living room to see, because the big white, but that's 24 by 36?
That's 24 by 36.
Okay. Why does it always take so long to sharpen a pencil? I don't know. Do you ever do inking? I can't decide between graphite or ink pens. Have you ever used them together?
Yeah, actually, I have the brush pens, which again I don't have one over here, but I have those the Pentel brush pens that I like, and I play with ink sometimes, and I'll sketch with ink pens with those brush pens, because you can get a real a gestural calligraphic line in your drawing that way.
Have you ever used them together? Barefoot Moose asks.
Not so much with graphite and ink, but I've used ink and black color pencil together. because
yeah,
those
that's
two
true.
blacks go together.
They work
pretty
well together.
Whereas the silver of the graphite, unless you're wanting to manufacture that look where there's a flat ink and then a reflective graphite, which can look good too. They don't mesh together unless you really have to noodle
Work
with
at
them a
them.
lot and then change the surface. Because I'll do that if I'm gonna put matte medium on the surface in the end, because that'll change the surface. It'll all look like it's the same kind of
Yeah.
paint or medium.
All right, we have some oil questions here now.
I'll try.
I'll try.
Yeah.
First is for you, what's the biggest difference between oils and pencils? And then there's another one that asks, do you always paint on board or do you use canvas as well?
Okay. I'll go. Let's see. I'll do them in order. So the biggest difference, I guess, between oil and pencil for me is that I tend to try to move faster with oil than I do with pencil because you can cover more area. And I noticed that if I'm not careful, I'll move too fast at different stages when I need to slow down. And then there's that process, that part of the process where you have to wait for things to dry.
So it
whereas
makes
with graphite, I could start at one corner and work to the end, and be done with it from one side to the other, and I don't have to worry about that. And I can, because I know what I'm doing so much, I can work at any level of detail. With oils, I'm still getting familiar with them, and probably will be forever.
No, well, sorry guys. I had to say hugs from Brazil.
Oh. Thank you.
And then board and versus canvas. Have you ever used canvas?
Yeah, I've painted on canvas before. I like the fact that the texture of the canvas makes a sort of tooth that can unify the elements of the image. I, for some reason, tend to like to work on board though, and I've never really thought too much about figuring out why. But I've worked on loose canvas before that I mounted to board. So basically, canvas mounted to board. I've not really worked on a lot of just canvas, like stretched canvas. And I remember reading a lot that the flexible stretched surface aids in like blending for a bit.
Yes.
But it's not. I wouldn't know that firsthand because I don't really work on stretched canvas. But
we're having a discussion on our chat here about the World Cup, which yes, because someone from Brazil popped on and said hugs, and then. But we do not discriminate against any sport. We don't usually watch any sports. But it's huge.
Yeah.
Come to Brazil.
Well, that would be fun.
We need to go to Brazil, Germany, England.
Oh yeah. We might be going all kinds of places in the future.
The sport of drawing. Hey, Doug. Doug Stanett says hi.
Oh, hey, Doug. If you're into
Sculpture.
really cool sculpture, you got to go check out Doug Stanett's work. It's just full of life and character, and they're beautifully done.
Drawing is not a sport. It can be a full contact sport.
When I throw my pencils around.
Which occasionally happens. It's got a nice shape to it.
It kind of gets to a point where it starts to look like molten.
Yeah.
I noticed as I was looking through some of this collected inspiration stuff that I have, that I tend to gravitate towards low-key photography when I'm looking at realism, because I like light folding over an image into darkness, and I think that has to do with the fact that I like sculpture so much, and drawing in a sculpting way.
Doug said, "Thank you very much."
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yes.
Yeah, we have some of Doug's work in our house. Actually, more than one piece. We have a few.
Yeah. People don't think drawing as a job to sustain an artist.
Say it again. People don't what?
don't think of drawing as a job to sustain an
Oh, yes.
artist.
Many people don't even believe it when you're doing it in front of them and making a living. I've had people. I told somebody that I was an artist, a professional artist once, and they said I was lying, that nobody did that for a living, and I only said that to get girls. I was like, yeah, this is what gets girls. That's what does it. Yeah. But yeah, no, there's a lot of people don't think of it as a. In fact, if you start off trying to be an artist, you run into the first thing you usually run into are people saying art's fun, but you can't make a living at it. Unless you actually start running into people who made a living at it.
Right.
You know,
or you try making a living at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What's the largest drawing you've done? Are you working mostly on the clay board and the A3 paper?
the largest drawing I've done was probably on the Fabriano paper, and it's like 20 by 30, I think. It's like 20 by 30, and I've done one or two of those of that size.
Mm-hmm.
The largest painting I've ever done was like the Lotus King, was 24 by 48, and there was a lot of actual graphite drawing underneath all that too.
I think you're too large.
I did.
I think there were penumbra and
Oh no, the pinups I did like
that was
15
those
years
were
ago.
like,
Those were 60 inches across.
yeah, they were 5 feet, weren't
Yeah.
they?
Mm-hmm.
Someone is asking which fine art college is good because I can't get an answer on the internet. There it's all about advertisement.
Oh, well, you know, that's we were talking about that.
A couple Saturdays ago.
It's hard for me to say with authority which fine art college is good because I didn't go to a fine art college. I went briefly to a liberal arts college that had a fine art department, and mostly got out of school, started working doing this, and looked for things to teach myself, whether it were books, seminars, you know, for the last 15 years online, you know. I would say something, you know, start with like something like Smart School that Rebecca and those guys do.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn a lot one-on-one through teachers that way.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to do it over,
They go for like 4 months, right?
yeah,
week,
it's a while, I think. If I had to do it over, I'd probably find something like a traditional, kind of a classic academic atelier that taught like the actual mechanics of painting and drawing, that I had to kind of learn a lot on my own, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about the art college, like
Yeah, we
the
can't
art
really give you-
schools. It's hard for me to say because I hear things going both directions from people who went there. And I didn't go there, so. I'm sorry if that doesn't help. I know it's hard online because everyone who usually says something positive about it, you usually find out they're trying to sell you something.
Right.
But I think it just depends on your nature. If you think you'll respond better to going somewhere and learning process, or if you can be sort of have a more self-guided way and research it and
Direction,
find out, yeah.
right.
There's so much out there now. I mean, I have people in my family that think I'm an expert when it comes to computers, but I'm just an expert at Google.
Right.
You know, I just look up what I want to learn how to do or what I need to know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And then you practice at it.
and then you work at it because
Yeah.
you can. It's like chess, right? You can learn the move quickly, but you don't learn how to apply
Put
the
it
move
together,
until
right,
you have, you
right.
know, some experience behind it.
Barefoot Moose says it's disheartening. A lot of people say that drawing for a living is nearly unattainable, but they'll say that about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare though. When I was growing up, in my experience, I mean, this may be different to you. It was hard for me to actually find someone that said that had actually tried to do it.
Yeah.
Most
It's
of the
usually
people that
someone
told
not
me
in the
that I
field.
couldn't make a living at it were people who had never tried to do that. And then I started bumping into so many different people that, you know, there's actually quite a lot of people making a living doing
Yes.
art and game design, different, you know, there's a lot of stuff in, you know.
So our
Games.
anniversary is tomorrow.
Yep.
We've been married 23 years.
Yeah.
We were together 7 years before that,
Right.
and we did Gen Con the first year we were together when it was still in Milwaukee.
Yep.
Before there was internet, before you could get your work out to everyone. I know it's frustrating when people say, nobody sees my stuff, but you couldn't do any of that. We would go to a show and push your work and see if you could get work from people. So
What it amounts to nowadays is it's hard to tell somebody if they're good enough or not to do something. What it amounts to is finding finding where your work fits in.
Right.
And if you do, it doesn't really matter what style you use or how you do it, as long as you find where it fits in. That's probably the most challenging part, because for each one of us, it might be a little bit different. You know.
It's just that when people, I know they get frustrated because not everyone sees stuff on, Facebook or this or that. At some point, you're going to go out and either to a local fair or a convention or wherever your art seems to fit, and just kind of muscle your way in there.
It's hard. I mean, people told me that, but like I said, I had the luck of running into a lot of professional artists that were like, yeah, you can make a living. You just have to, you just have to work very hard at it. It's not going to be that easy. And you may not become a fad. You may not become somebody like Keith Haring or those guys who,
explode
their
on the
style
scene,
just
right?
becomes something the rest of the world has to license and have.
Right.
But it's just like everybody, they tell musicians the same thing, but they forget to tell people that there are thousands of musicians that work in studios across the country, or
or actors.
Yeah, and
writers.
Maybe compared to how many that try, there aren't that. I mean, it's a low
Right.
percentage of people, but there are a lot of musicians that work just in studio sets that do fill-in music and background music, and that's what they do for a living.
She said,
So.
She says it's good to hear it's actually starting to work for her, and it's used to feel like a joke because of other people.
Oh, well,
no offense, but
yeah.
she said you've given her hope.
Oh.
Congrats on ignoring people and getting it done.
Oh,
that's kind of what you have to do sometimes.
I'm glad, because there's always going to be somebody that's willing to tell you why you can't do something. The thing is that even people, I've seen people who come up and wanted to learn how to draw, and they were older, and I said, well, that's really not the obstacle. The obstacle is you don't know when somebody's talent will kick in. And when I say talent, I mean their vision, so to speak, not talent.
Right.
Because I don't think that you necessarily have to be born with an ability to do something.
Don't you think you have to be able to look at where you need improvement, though, too?
If there's a talent, it's the ability to constantly be involved in what you do. Like, the talent for me is that I'll sit down and do it, and I'll stick with it. Like, my talent may just be that I can stare at the head of a pencil for 8 hours a day. I mean, that's hard for people to do, and just there's something to be said about work, because there's a lot of people that they'll try, and then after the difficult part is you don't know when you're supposed to quit or when you think it's supposed to kick in.
Right.
And
all right, another question: do you look at sculpture photos to capture shading on the creatures you create, or is it out of your head?
A little bit of both. I can fake it. Like right now, I'm not looking at anything, but I can if I want to actually do a directional lighting, I've got enough. It's pretty straightforward. That light projects an array, so it's a straight line basically from wherever your light source is. So I can figure that out based on knowing what the form does and knowing that every time I change a value, it's the form changing shape. So, but that being said, I kind of like doing this too, because this is what traditionally they would do. They would sculpt busts of people when they were going to paint their portraits.
Doesn't Gurney do that? He sets his...
I think Gurney sculpts everything or paints plein air everywhere. He paints 98 hours out of a day. He's
like a madman.
But
James Gurney,
yeah.
yes.
So when people used to do those beautiful portraits you see in the old school galleries, they would sculpt these life-size busts of the head and then light them with all the proportions and stuff there, and they would do multiple studies of everything. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we kind of have the ability to do that now with some digital media, so you can take photographs and you can actually create a quick bust of a head and light it if you want, and it'll give you an idea of where light's supposed to go. Or you can just make a rough maquette, like they do in film, when they're trying to figure, design out or whatever.
Right.
But I think it's valuable to do that, and I think probably it's not something that gets done a lot. But the people who do it, it does lend an element of realism to their work.
Right.
Or I'd say believability to their work.
All right, there's companies won't hire me because I'm overqualified. What if I'm overqualified for Marvel and I want money? Same person. Everybody wants to play a guard, but nobody wants to actually join the band.
So, what was the question?
No, you're not banned from comments, Arbog.
Huh?
There's stuff is flying in here fast.
So, they've been told they're overqualified for the work.
I don't know if they've been told or if they think they're overqualified for the work.
Well,
they would have to specify.
I guess that's a matter of finding the specific place that you need to be. You know, it's like when they tell you as an illustrator that you need to develop a portfolio, and they say you need to tailor your portfolio towards the job you want. You know, so if you want to work for Marvel, you need to look at what Marvel does and tailor it directly at that, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that means, overqualified in terms of being an artist.
Doug has a very good point here. He says, talent is a much overused word. You don't need talent to develop skill.
No. In fact, there's a whole thing called...
isn't you agree with him?
Yeah, I agree.
You agree with him?
Because that's the reason there was an academy, right?
Right.
You can teach academic painting. You can teach people Munsell value color for painting, where color, you can map it out, and you can mathematically match a color if you want to learn how to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where things come in is when you have to, and I don't think it's talent. I think it's just becoming aware of your specific, unique taste, and letting that show through that program of academic training.
Yes.
Because I think you can learn how to draw. I think you could sit somebody down and teach them how to draw photorealistically. Because I'm not discounting photorealists as being a minimal thing. It's just that you can teach somebody how to reproduce a value that they see in person,
right,
or a line that they see. You know,
right.
It's where that changes from it that's a harder thing to teach, because that's very independent on a person's aesthetic, their personal aesthetic.
Another comment: for years, I would give up on my drawings way too quick, and after watching you and getting over her fear their fear of making mistake, and working through those happy accidents, something beautiful is created. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I mean, that's a thing that I dealt with a lot too.
All the time.
was stopping too soon.
Yes.
And in fact, I've said this before when people have asked me for critiques about drawing. I said that the number one problem I see with most drawings is that there's not enough drawing in it.
Just keep going.
Yeah. So.
You were right, Arbog. Thinks the guy was joking about overqualifications.
Oh, okay.
Do you use different pencils to accomplish shading tones, or one specific? It just depends, right?
It does. It depends on how finely rendered the piece is and whether or not I have high and low values.
Right.
You know, if it goes pretty high, it doesn't make sense to use a soft lead for a super high value. Mm-hmm. But to me, high value is HB. And I can lay down a line with an HB pencil that you can't see from an arm's distance away, right? So, and you can do that too. So it's just how fine you want to be with it, you know. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll put a little area of detail in a piece and sort of establish a bar for myself that the rest of the piece is going to, come up to. So if I render a spot out and it works, then the rest of the piece will sort of adapt itself to the area that works, which is the opposite of what most people tell you in terms of drawing.
Yes.
They usually tell you to work on the whole piece at once for composition and stuff like that, but
90% of your drawings would be going off the paper in the first 10 years that you were drawing.
Well, and the thing is that it's a valid
there's a point to
game plan
right.
to do that. It's just that there are people that learn how to do things differently. I didn't have as much academic training, so I figured out how to do a lot of stuff. What most people would consider the wrong way. But I got to a point where I trusted myself enough to know that I could get to where I was going, and I realized not too long ago that a lot of times instead of iterating, doing multiple iterations of things, that I basically I go through it
in your head.
I go through it in my head. I'll sit here and think about, like, okay, do I want to do it this way or that way? And I'll see it in my head, and I'll go, no.
I can tell when you're doing that.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there. I'm like, sometimes I'm laying across the bed staring off into space, and it looks like I'm in a trance, but I'm actually drawing in my head, I guess.
Pradit says you are not conventional at all.
Oh, well.
That's true.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want you to get the impression that there's anything wrong with the conventional way of doing things. It's just you definitely have to figure out if that's the right direction for you.
Right.
There are some people who will go through an academic process and come out on the other side, and it'll be beautiful. And other people, it won't, you know.
Right.
So, but the one thing is that you can't ever. If somebody asks me, like, I had a discussion with another artist friend once about how, you know, you just can't teach certain people because they don't have it. And I kind of disagree with that. I think you have to teach anybody who wants to learn and let it be discovered by them at whatever point it happens, because it's not really up to you at that point. You know, your job, if you're trying to teach somebody something, is just to teach them and to help them as much as you can. And if they find it, that's great. If they don't find it and they can move on from that, you know, that's part of their process too. You know, but
that's very hard to.
It is. It's difficult if you see somebody who's struggled for a long time to do something, and they don't seem like they're figuring it out. But then again, that happened to me for a long time about certain things, and then like 20 years into being a professional artist, I started figuring out how to do some of the stuff I wanted to do. You know, so I can't rightfully tell somebody they don't have it, because you don't
use liquid as a medium. What?
Some people don't start drawing until, you know, after they're like middle of their life. I mean, so how can you tell if somebody has something or not? You know, you can't. You just have to see if it can be brought out.
Yes.
You know.
Neil says the thing is very simple. Can a surgeon be overqualified to treat a person? That translated to the arts. Can an artist be too much? Know too much how to place the lead on the paper. Doesn't think there is such a thing.
I think in a way that if, okay, so this relates to another thing that happens to me a lot. So I get people that'll tell me that some of my work was used as reference for some other project. And I thought, well, why don't they just ask me? And then I thought, well, maybe it's not conducive to ask me because I would be attached to my own work and not want to change it. Right? So maybe a surgeon wouldn't want to, like, say, do plumbing for a living, you know. Right. So you don't ask a surgeon to do plumbing for a living. Not that they're, I mean, you obviously will need a plumber a lot more often than you'll need a surgeon, hopefully.
Right. Yes.
But I'm saying just in two different fields of endeavor.
Right. The fish and the fish
so,
climbing a tree, right?
Right. So, you know, it kind of, I kind of got lost in the question there. It's, I don't know that you can know how to lay down graphic too much, but you might be too attached to doing it a certain way that isn't conducive to a project. Like this kind of drawing that I'm doing right here, right now, is not as conducive to concept work as doing just line art and some lighter detail. So I have to be able to change that. If I weren't willing to change that, then I couldn't do concept work or contract work at all.
Right, right. Yes, we have a YouTube channel. It's at Alan Williams Studio. This will go up on our. This will go up on the stories on Instagram, and then like I'm just getting. I put it up on Patreon, which is at Alan Williams, and then I'll put it up on the YouTube channel. So you can catch us there. Melinda said, I used to draw a lot like you, but took a long time away from it. Now I have no idea why I have a hard time making myself draw again. I want to finish my drawing and still struggling with why I won't. Well,
that's, yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to have to come from inside. I mean, to be able to do it. You know, if you're not doing it and you want to, then maybe there's still some part of you that's, you know, not ready to do it yet. But if it's just a question too of sometimes a habit gets in the way. You know, people get in the habit of not working on things. I mean, no, it's
no,
true.
It's true.
People get into a habit of not doing a thing, and it gets hard to, like, I mean, it's kind of like if you spend too much time away from visiting your family, it's kind of hard sometimes to know how to go back and visit them again.
All right.
You know what I mean? But it's the same thing. It's like the trick is to do it little bits at a time until it gets a hold of you. So don't sit down and try to finish a drawing, but just sit down and try to play with something.
Play with a little
and then leave it. If it, I mean, you know, do the
hour at a time. Just
or
do it
not
for
even
an
that.
hour.
Not even that. Just do it 10 or 15 minutes. You know, draw for 10 or 15 minutes at a time. You know, if that's all you can do, or that's all you seem to or be inspired to do. And I guarantee you, if you sit down and play with it for a little bit, you'll get lost into it eventually.
Sorry, a bunch of these questions are going by fast, guys. Have you ever done anything for Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
Yes. We do not play, though. We have been told we should.
I've played once or twice, but that's it.
Okay, but we don't know how to play. But yes, he did stuff all the way back in Ice Age.
Yep.
See, that was like 92 or 94.
Yeah. It was the second
Yes.
set I think that came out.
Yes. So if you can find all the different names, and he's done magic cards because they are you tend to use different names.
Yeah, if you
And I'm
look
not going
up-
to tell him no.
yeah,
Don't tell him no.
yeah. I did the Maritime Guard as one of the ones. It was the one I did when I started back. I stopped doing it for like 10 years,
Yeah.
and then Maritime Guard I think was the first card I did when I came back.
One of the first cards you did was like Blinking Spirit.
Oh, that was early on. Yeah.
Early on.
Yeah, and then I did the replacement for Blinking Spirit
Yes.
because the first one I did was a flying card.
Because it used to be that they would just give you names of the cards.
Right.
How often do you draw from life compared to your imaginative drawings?
Life. I don't draw strictly from living models or from living things. I will draw from photography that I'll take. I'll take like shoot photos. If I need something to be realistic, I'll try to find the right reference for it. I don't do a lot of drawing in the wild unless it's like I'm just making stuff up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Unless it's just out of my head. It's just not something. It's like, again, like a habit. I was saying, it's like I was never in the habit of doing it, of drawing like people sitting at bus stops and things like that. I think it's really beautiful when people do that and do it with a sensitive hand. When I draw like that, it tends to look like not.
Stop. Let's see. Hobo Grinder asks, sometimes I start a drawing and I know it needs more detail, but I don't know how to start. Any advice?
This is one of those things where I think if you look at just look at the shadows and you draw the shadow shapes first, and if you can find the shadows first, it's like that's sometimes like I'll start a drawing with just like I did in the sketch where I'll just like map out like this thing. It's a goofy little thing, but like where's he at? It's on this next page. So I'll do something like this, and I'll just look at where the darkest shadow would be and where the light would hit the form. Right, and then from that I could do a larger drawing, and I know there's going to be detail in here, or I could actually make it go really black and have it like a low key photo where all the detail is just in the light areas, right? Or I could make it more photorealistic where you would see different, like 2 or 3 different shadow values in here, and but I do that a lot. If you see that, I'll actually find the value, and even in this, I'm finding the values kind of. I'm looking at where the shadows lie.
And it might start like this, and then you'll end up picking out one little spot and
Yeah.
just going for a detail.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about setting the bar. I'll pick out a spot and like render it to almost completion, and then I know where the rest of the piece has to go.
Yes.
And whether or not the whole thing has to be that level, or if I'm only rendering a spot and letting it bleed out to less detail or whatever.
Do you Warhammer? You never did anything for Warhammer, did you?
I had friends that did Warhammer, but I never did anything.
No,
with it.
ever paint or customize the models? No, we don't.
No, I've never done any model painting, but
No.
I think there's some cool looking models out there.
Before creating your pictures, when in a trance, this is someone's question, how do you prep yourself? Any specific techniques before you start and transfer it to the drawing? Coffee?
I usually,
First.
I'll usually drink coffee. A lot of times I'll sit down and I'll look through the stuff that I like to look at, whether it's browse the internet in terms of looking at other people's work and seeing what's being done in the world, or I'll pick up stuff like like these bones and things that I have I can only look at this kind of stuff for so long, and then I have to draw because it's just all this texture makes me just want to draw it exactly as it is. And I just I have that, whatever that thing you would want to call it is, where you look at something and then I could only look at it for so long, and then I have to go work.
Oh, yes,
But-
he did slivers.
Oh yeah, I did a few slivers. Yeah.
Oh, Doug's taken off.
Oh.
Nice to hear from you, Doug. Thank you for stopping by.
Yep.
Someone else said, I always try to absorb your artwork and can't figure out how you came up with amazing concepts. Someone else asked, how do you start your concepts, or where are they from? But that's kind of what you were answering, right? When you look at
like this thing, if you look at like creature design, you'll realize that also that a lot of like, I think there was some kaiju actually that were based on the bone structures of old dinosaurs from like Pacific Rim, the first one. A lot of creature design comes from observation of abstract forms in nature. Whereas this is actually a skull plate from a fish. You could turn it into a chest plate of a character or creature. Or, you alter it and adapt it. You turn it into something else. It almost kind of looks like an undead warthog, so to me. But and then you do things like this, where you do like abstract shapes and play with them until you see something. I scribble. I don't try to get too detailed with things. right away until I just get like an idea down or something, But,
Yeah, I like that one. That's an idea. I know there's an idea in there.
there is.
I don't know what it is.
This is shorthand for me.
That's right. He'll remember it. And there's also bags of bones.
I have bags of bones and pieces
Boxes
of stuff.
bones.
If you look around in the studio, there's all kinds of stuff like that around.
His own drawings up. Other people's drawings up. Sculpture. You ever use charcoal powder for larger areas? No.
I haven't really played a lot with charcoal powder. I have some. Like I've mentioned this, I think in previous things. But it feels different to me, and I'm not like I'm willing to play with it. I just haven't.
Yeah.
I have like a whole bunch of charcoal to play with. It feels chalky to me, which is a little unpleasant. But the graphite that I use is so soft. It feels like almost like painting.
That underglaze pencil is going to feel chalky too.
Huh?
That woman said the underglaze pencil that I bought you today.
Oh, will it?
It's going to feel chalky. She said it'll feel really weird going across the
This was fun.
tile.
Vicki brought me a pencil today that I had never seen because it's actually made specifically for pottery. And she's been doing some pottery and wanted me to play with drawing on some of these blank pieces of ceramics that she's doing. And so she bought a specific pencil that's
for underglaze.
That's for underglazing that will supposedly show up after you glaze the piece. So we'll see.
Chile says hello.
Oh, hello,
says
Chile.
hello.
So
Barefoot Moose says thank you so much for answering questions.
Anytime.
Way too many questions. You're her favorite artist.
Oh, anytime. Just email
Someone
me.
asked if you're a fan of Wayne Barlow.
Of course I am. Actually,
I think that's one of the books from before we were together.
Yeah, I had
Bright
I had
Inferno.
no, the expedition book I had the what was it? Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials.
That's what it
was
is.
the first one that I had, and then I had Expedition, and now I have the
Anything
Inferno
that has
book.
survived. I think he's doing another book too soon.
He's been writing. Yeah.
Anything that has survived since before we were together is.
Yeah. I got actually. The funny thing is that the very first concept job I ever had, I got to work with Wayne, which was one of those mixed blessings because he's sort of like always been like one of your idols or one of my idols. So you walk into a room and like the first thing you see is the guy that you like idolize sitting there, and you're like both excited and terrified at the same time.
Right. It's 9:50 already.
Is it really?
Yes, I have. Did I even mention our website is Alan Williams Studio,
Yeah.
along with our YouTube channel is Alan Williams Studio. You'll get these up there eventually, and some other videos. And I didn't get anything done this week. Sorry.
That's because we had the kids in camp, and she was
Camp and Vacation Bible School.
taking kids and doing T-shirts and doing all this
Driving
stuff.
and
So, but
arts and crafts,
Mhm.
everything. Our website, YouTube, patreon.com/Alan Williams. There's other videos on that and some downloads you can look at and everything. We're gearing up for your solo show
that's going to be in August.
at Copro Gallery.
It's called Covenant at Copro Gallery, and there'll be another show along with it that's called Personal Gods.
Yes.
That'll be fun too. And I was going to mention that sometimes when I'm working on a painting,
Yes.
so I want to get gestural, and I can't, if it's a big board, I can't get that gestural on a big board when I stand that close to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a bigger pencil extender
Oh my God.
so I can draw from across the room. So I can literally, I can do gestural lines from across the room.
Wait,
So
that's
it's
ridiculous.
about 4 feet long. So
He's been painting.
I can
Got
actually
two?
draw over here while I'm sitting at my table. No, but it's for looking at gestural shit. It's not for details. It's for gesture.
This one, I don't even have a good shot of this one.
I have to scan it, and then I'm not sure if it's done yet.
I mean, but I need some scans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get a good shot on it. And there's two other paintings out there.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be at Copro, and how many dates? The show opening is August 11th, so he will be there for that, and then it's open through the month of August, so the art will be there.
So
When sketching concept ideas, do you prefer pen or pencil?
Oh, I like both actually. I sketch a lot with a pen because that way I don't get too involved in over rendering like small sketches. But I'll do it both ways. But I tend to, if I'm using a pencil, I'll tend to use a really dull flat lead. You know, like even a carpenter's pencil type thing.
We got about 10 minutes left,
Yeah.
you guys.
So, but I really like the feel of sketching with a ballpoint pen because it, like I said, I don't get too tight with it.
We were at some program and he forgot a pencil,
There,
so he took my pen.
I did.
It's a Signo,
This-
Uniball
yeah.
Signo.
This
They're really
is-
smooth.
This one's blue, but I have a pack of 25 coming in from Jet Pens that are black.
No, there's no reason to get 25 pens.
Yeah, it is.
You tax me.
I vex you.
You vex me? No, you tax me.
Well, you do the taxes as well. That's true.
Oh, you love me for it too.
Of course I do. But, yeah, I like pen. I like drawing with a ballpoint. But, and I actually like.
We started
those-
with the other drawing first, and then you turned to this one, and you just kept going.
Oh yeah, well that's why I have more than one piece in there.
So,
I have more pieces to get out for this this show, so I'm like playing with a lot of ideas that might turn into paintings. So
drawings. I got to start framing everything next week. I'll be posting those too. We are on Facebook at Alan Williams Art. So I'm posting them there, or I'll set up an event or something. And of course here on Instagram also.
So another thing I look for sometimes when I'm drawing the form is a line of termination of the shadow where it curves around the form, and it visually looks like it gets a little darker before it goes back to regular shadow and gets light again. I think at some point they called it boxing your shadow, where you would actually just kind of draw a line around the shadow, and that would be your slightly darkest line, and it gives the impression of having a core shadow at the height of the turn around the form. Because anything cylindrical has a core shadow.
Right,
you know?
right.
So.
Mind at Large wants to grab some prints.
Oh yeah.
And
Please.
Hobo Grinder says, before we take off, he appreciates the advice and looking forward to another random Insta Live feed.
Oh yeah. We try to do them on Saturday nights at 9. Unless, like I said, the last time there was a squirrel got in my mother-in-law's house, so we were late.
My mother called up, come over, quick.
The squirrel left, and everyone was safe. So.
Yes. Will there be a live feed from the show? I'm assuming from the show.
From Copro? Sometimes they do that. They do occasionally run a live feed from there.
I know Chris had it. Chris did it there. Oh, I could do it if I'm there.
Yeah. We have that nice camera gimbal you could walk around.
Yeah, I
with.
should be using it right now. We are having fun with the summertime. We got about 5 more minutes, you guys. If you have any questions, nothing too deep, not too long. Say it's awesome to see you drawing.
Oh, thank you.
Said it looks good. Keep on trucking.
Thanks. I have another piece that was called Slither. And I've always wanted to go back and revisit it and revisit the idea of the piece. So that's kind of what this is, another exploration of that. So, which, it's kind of fun to do that, to every so often go back and like maybe revisit an idea that you thought you could do better at now.
Mm-hmm. Said thank you for the live feed.
Yeah.
I could watch you draw all day. Where's the dog? You knew he walked in.
Yeah, he's over there.
He's over here, look.
I think he does one outside now.
He does one outside now.
That's because it's not thundering anymore.
No, he's been inside all day because it's been thundering horribly. Well, oh, sorry guys. Every single time.
Sometimes we'll go to the back door there and there'll be green tree frogs stuck to the window.
Oh yes. Hack line shading or side pencil shading. What do you use or prefer the most?
It depends on what I'm going for. If I'm trying to establish a form, the side of the pencil tends to give me broader shapes that will more quickly establish the overall form. and then I'll move into going in and detailing things out with the sharper end. And I tend to do this without even thinking. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah.
I'll do this.
Turn the pencil.
And then I'll do this. Almost every time I pick up my pencil, it's something I learned how to do when I was drafting in high school. Mm-hmm. And I've always done it, and I just never knew that I did it until we filmed me one time.
Yeah, and you were like, hey.
It was just something, and that's why I don't have to sharpen my pencil all the time, because I'm always working with a chisel point. It's not chisel though; it's a tapered point,
mm-hmm.
but it's like a very short conical point. But there's always a sharp edge somewhere because I keep turning it, and I did it there.
Right. Someone asked, if you start a drawing that looks good in your sketchbook, do you finish the piece there or put it on a bigger piece of paper?
You know what? That's the thing. I have trouble
it.
drawing in just like a cheap sketchbook, because I will try to finish it there. But I've gotten to the point where I started drawing on really cheap paper that isn't worth finishing, like lined paper,
yellow paper.
So
Where
that I will
are
be
the lined
forced.
Yellow pads.
I don't have them out right now, but so that I would be forced. But Strathmore paper is good though. I mean, that's not bad.
No, but like these, you don't.
Well,
he will sometimes finish something out of this.
This is moleskin, but it's made up for storyboards. So I don't really finish anything on this because it's made up. It's got all these pre-printed lines on it. I have to trick myself into not finishing it where I start it.
Yes.
So.
Yes. All right, we're almost at a close, you guys. Oops, someone else. What was that you did for Del Toro? You worked on Mountains of Madness.
I was on
Pacific Rim.
Let's see. In 2010, we worked on a version of Mountains of Madness that he was attempting at the time, and that got put on hold. And then I worked on Pacific Rim. And then I also worked on Killings at Carnival Row, which I guess is still in production now, but it's going through somebody else.
But then you've also worked with Joel on Star Trek.
I did work on Star Trek Beyond. I did work with Aronofsky on Noah.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, scared me.
The dog.
Dog one
so
second.
And I did some work on. I did some preliminary stuff on the Hellboy reboot that's coming up, and then.
Yeah, prelim stuff.
Yeah.
We've worked on a bunch of other ones.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to wrap it up since the dog is going to beat on the door here in a moment. Everyone is saying thank you for answering their questions.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for the live feeds. Maybe this piece will be done before next week.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, we will... Oh.
That's the dog knocking, if you can't hear that.
The dog knocking. Okay. We will talk to you guys later, and have a good week. Draw something cool. Or just draw something.
And have fun.
Draw something cute. Draw something cool and
just
have
draw
fun.
A little bit if you can't draw a lot.
Draw a little bit. A little bit often makes much.
Little and often makes much.
That's right. All right. Thanks, you guys. Have a good week.